Hey Eagles fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into the Eagles Report, and today, let's take a look at the Eagles' 2020 free agent options as well as a full cap breakdown. How much money are the Eagles going to be able to spend on new players and new free agents? Before we go, thumbs up for a cap video happening right now, as well as subscribe to the fastest growing Eagles channel right now. The more subscriptions, the more Eagle videos I can put out every single week. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the Eagles' 2020 in-house free agents, and there are a bunch of big names to dive into. Over 15 free agents are going to be available on this team to either re-sign or go sign somewhere else. You have big names like Jason Peters, Ronald Darby. The Eagles, I think their focus for this free agency needs to be get younger and get more explosive on both offense and defense. Let's go ahead and throw up the full list of names in terms of free agents between unrestricted and restricted free agents. How about some of these names? Ronald Darby, Jalen Mills, they're your two starting cornerbacks. They're going to be free agents this offseason, including Roddy McLeod. 3 of your starting 4 in the secondary are all potential free agents. Left tackle, the bodyguard, Jason Peters, has said he wants to return and play one more year either with Philadelphia or with another team. And then you have guys like Nelson Agholor, Jordan Howard, Halapulviati Vaitai, Camus Grugier-Hill, Nate Sudfeld, Josh McCown, Timmy Jernigan, Darren Sproles, Richard Rodgers, Hassan Ridgeway, and then your restricted and restricted free agent is Corey Clement, including Craig James and Cameron Johnston. Those are all of your restricted and unrestricted free agents. Difference between the two: restricted means, in Corey Clement's case, the Eagles can put a tender on him, and if a team tries to sign him, the Eagles can re-sign him or they get a draft pick for him, essentially. Unrestricted means they can go sign with anybody right here. So let's look further and deeper at this list and try and decide who the Eagles should keep and who they should not. Let's just say money isn't an issue, which we'll talk about in a second because it actually isn't. Who needs to stay? Who needs to go? Between Darby and Mills, I think you have to choose one. Now, people sitting there and they go, Thomas, Jalen Mills has struggled at times. Ronald Darby has struggled at times. I know, but you need someone to play cornerback this year unless you're going to have all rookies that you draft because Sidney Jones is not ready to go. And Avonte Maddox, we like him, but he's really better in the slot than he is on the outside. I would keep Jalen Mills over Ronald Darby. Jalen Mills is an Eagles draft pick. Remember, they drafted him in the 6th round from LSU. Darby they traded for from Buffalo. I think it was Buffalo. Anyway, Jalen Mills is the one that you would go ahead and keep in this situation. Roddy McLeod, though, to me, is expendable. Roddy McLeod came over. He was a big hitter during the days of St. Louis. He's a trade guy. You get him into this room, and people loved him early on, and then, in my opinion, he struggled in coverage a lot this past season. He's a guy that's getting a little bit older. I would let Roddy McLeod go in the end as well. Go ahead and pick up a safety in free agency or draft somebody and try and make that secondary, at least on the back half next to Malcolm Jenkins, a little bit younger. How about Jason Peters? You want to keep Jason Peters? I would argue no. I love Jason Peters. I wish he would come help on the coaching staff or the practice squad, whatever it is, but I want to start Andre Dillard at left tackle. We spent a first-round draft pick on him, obviously, the offensive tackle. He needs to be getting reps with the first-teamers because he looked pretty good when he was filling in for Jason Peters. It's not so much Andre Dillard, it's more so much Jason Peters. I love Jason Peters. I appreciate Jason Peters. But he gets hurt every single year. And he's literally hurt for extended periods of time, and then you got to move Dillard over here, and then you got maybe adjust over here. There's too many things happening in the offensive line for your left tackle to be going out at least for 4 or 5 games a season. I love him. He's probably going to come back in the grand scheme of things because the coaches and players and people in Philadelphia love him. But at the same time, I would rather start Andre Dillard, and that way you have your rookie left tackle and your young superstar in Lane Johnson, the anchors on the outside going forward here in Philadelphia. How about this one? Nelson Agholor. Do you keep Nelson Agholor? Do you want to keep the wide receiver? I think this is an easy no. Comment down below if you want to keep Nelson Agholor. I would say, very obviously, do not want to keep him unless he would want to come back for dirt cheap, which is a possibility because what's his actual market value going to be? How many teams are going to be desperate for Nelson Agholor services? Unless he would come back for cheap, I would not keep him at all. And the same goes for Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard was a guy I would have said re-signed for sure towards the beginning of the season. Gets hurt, comes back, and they never gave him the football after that. You look in the postseason touches, they're less than 10 touches per game, and that is because of the emergence of Miles Sanders. So, Jordan Howard, Nelson Agholor, if you want to come back for cheap, friendly deals, I'm all for it. You're going to be the backup, though. And let me tell you, neither of them are going to want to come back on cheap, friendly deals to actually be the backup. Jordan Howard especially should at least try and go get one more decent-sized 2 or 3 year deal to be able to, pay for all the bumps and bruises that he's gotten along the way. It's the problem with the running back position these days. You get over 28, 29, 30, and no one wants to give you their money. I like Jordan Howard. I don't really like Nelson Agholor. I would take them on the cheap, but I'll say it right now, they are not going to be staying anytime soon for the type of money the Eagles will offer them. All right, moving on here. Some of these other names that pop up. I mean, Nate Sudfeld, maybe he's your backup quarterback. I think they should re-sign him to be the backup quarterback. But guys like Vaitai and Camus Grugier-Hill, obviously Richard Rodgers, Hassan Ridgeway, even Corey Clement, I think, are all going to walk in free agency because the Eagles like these players, but they're going to go try and get there somewhere else. Hassan Ridgeway, a guy filling in for Malik Jackson on the defensive tackle spot, had done a pretty good job. And again, if you want to come back, team-friendly deal, we'll take you, but I think a lot of these guys are going to go because the Eagles aren't going to throw a bunch of money at them because they want to upgrade the position. There are upgrades out there from Hassan Ridgeway. This is not a bunch of superstar talent-level players you have to re-sign if you're Philadelphia. If any one of these guys left, even throw in Darby and Mills and Peters and McLeod, I mean, the big-name guys, I think Eagle fans would groan a little bit, but they know there are bigger improvements out there, and that's the beauty of the Eagles' free agent spot is because they have a bunch of guys they need to re-sign, or could re-sign technically, but a bunch of these guys are not exactly big-name, huge, anchor-building players. All their anchor-building players, Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders, they're all signed through the next 3 years. So it's a big, deep list. Let me know in the comment section who you guys think is important to keep, but I think all of them are fully expendable, and we'll see what happens as the Eagles get closer and closer to free agency. I want to continue, though, and finish up with the cap space situation, because you have all these players, but can you actually re-sign them? Or you have all the free agents from other teams, can you actually go after them? Here's the deal. The Eagles are in the best cap situation they have been in for the past 10 years. They have an insane amount of money. We have not had this luxury in a very, very long time. The Eagles are projected to have more cap space, like I just said, than they had in the past 10 years. It's going to be about $46.9 million in cap space. That will be top 10 in the league this year. It could even be top 5. Last year, San Francisco, the Colts, they had $50, $60 million. So the Eagles are right at 50 with 46.9. Very, very close to it. They're going to have a ton of ammunition to go ahead and spend. They have a bunch of draft picks. This is a season for the Eagles to reload, put new weapons around Carson Wentz, rebuild kind of the face of this franchise in terms of who's on the outside, who's at cornerback, who's at safety, and build, hopefully, for another championship in the next 5 years. They have, like we said, 46.9, but they can get higher if they re-sign some people and kind of redo some overall contracts. We mentioned Alshon Jeffrey in a video earlier this week. If you were to trade him, you're going to save about $10 million. If you cut him, you're going to lose $11 million. If they trade him, he would be huge for our cap space and would give us $10 extra million. Find a way to trade Alshon Jeffrey. How about a guy like Deshaun Jackson? Do you re-sign Deshaun Jackson? Do you rework his deal and you can save a little bit of money towards your cap? And then guys like Malcolm Jenkins and Nigel Bradham. Nigel Bradham recently got a new contract, which looks like we overpaid for Nigel Bradham. Could you restructure him? Could you trade him? You could make more money there. And then Malcolm Jenkins, a guy who has 2 years left on his deal at about $8 million a year, but he said he's not going to want to play under that contract. If you give him an extension, a longer-term deal, more money, but spread it out, that'll help the cap as well. I would not be surprised if by the time the Eagles get started in free agency, actually going after players and stuff like that, they have almost $50 million in cap space to go out and add players, which means you could throw some money at a free agent wide receiver like Robbie Anderson. You could look at a pass rusher. What if Von Miller becomes available? There are so many options the Eagles can do here. They could go get a corner. They could get a wide receiver. They could get a staple defensive end and spend all the money this free agency on that and then build through the draft as well and have these guys come up. It's just a beautiful thing right now for Philadelphia. The point of this video, and again, every video I do here on the Eagles Report, subscribe, by the way, I would appreciate it, has a point. It's for you guys to learn or know something, whether it's injury news or it's trade rumors, is to teach you that some people don't realize the Eagles are going to have a fantastic offseason. This is the most money Howie Roseman has had in a very, very long time. And now, if they do it right, we could have a total reload on a season where we were a couple of plays away. One injury, Carson Wentz, getting knocked out by Jadeveon Clowney, away from potentially being in the divisional round and upsetting Seattle, and we could have maybe gone on the road and beat Green Bay. Who knows? The Eagles are in perfect position to reload, sign some players, make some splashes, and then attempt to go into the 2020 season, win the NFC East, and maybe even go to the playoffs as well. Dallas has a new head coach, the Giants have a new head coach, and Washington also, guess what, has a new head coach. So they're all going to be trying to rebuild. Philadelphia is primed, they're poised, and they look ready to rock in terms of free agency. There you go. How about that? As much free agent news as you could possibly have will be found here. All the free agent news, the rumblings, the rumors, you'll hear it first here on the Eagles Report, so click that red subscribe button. We're over 2,000 subscribers. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Again, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified when breaking news happens. We do a ton of stuff here on the Eagles Report. There's also a link to my Facebook page in the comment description down below. The Eagles Report, I'm Thomas